And now we are ready to finish and get this show on the road, and we'll open up. And for anybody has any initial questions, I wasn't here last week. Last month, was I had a family, this brother, and I couldn't attend. And the other coach here, Wayne, is looking for places to stay. Give like 60 days, so it'll be fine. So he's looking for places. So that's what the update I have. Since I missed last one. Open for me.
Perfect. So the meeting has been called to order at 5:34 p.m. Thank you very much, Mr. Co-Chair. On that note, I just want to reiterate that Wayne, our co-chair, has had to resign. He has, like Mike said, he has some personal things going on right now, and he has had to resign. He will rejoin us as a committee member when he is able, when he has that capacity. So what we will do, that means we now have a vacancy for co-chair, because this wonderful committee has 2 chairs, and right now we only have 1. So during our next meeting, we will elect a new co-chair. So anybody interested in joining as chair, please reach out to me or Mike. And then on that note, because we have a few newbies in the room, for the sake of time, I'm going to ask that we do this really quickly, okay? Just names. That's all we're doing. Just names, everybody, okay? But let's go around the room and let's please introduce ourselves. So my name is Victoria Kelly of Homeless Leadership Alliance in Pinellas.
My name is Daniel, Mills Park.
Cat, Mills Park.
Mike Gross, Mills Park. Very small, St. Pete. And Cleveland, Mills Park.
Oh, Ryder, Pinellas Park.
Ellie Hunter, Mills Park.
We're in Pinellas County.
Matthew Gautier, Pinellas Park, St. Pete.
Jennifer Haycock, Lauderdale, Clearwater. Christina Carson, Lauderdale, Clearwater.
Rick Cipriani, St. Pete.
Thank you all very, very much. I appreciate that. It's wonderful to see so many new faces. Before we move on to the consent agenda, I want to review some of what we do here for everybody. We will go through a little bit more in this when we go into our core governance. But what we are doing here, Live Experience Advisory Committee, is a committee of the Pinellas Continuum of Care. The Continuum of Care is through service providers, government agencies, folks who live experience, neighbors, all trying to work together to end homelessness. I like to think of it as pushing the same boulder up the hill instead of everybody pushing their own boulder up the hill, so that we actually make some progress. This committee is part of that progress. The CoC has an ideal, which is nothing about you without you. Except, I've been told recently, there weren't a lot of folks with lived experience on the board or in a lot of the rooms where decisions were being made. The purpose of this committee is to make sure that that does not. We do need to plug it in. Okay, I'm gonna yell while I set this up.
Easy come, easy go.
I'm gonna plug it in, Norm. So, the purpose of this committee is to make sure that the CoC is truly living up to the ideal of nothing about you without you. So this committee is set up to make sure that y'all are informed when decisions are being made and you have a say in decisions that are being made. I'm also happy to say that thanks to members of this committee, we now have not 1, but 2 individuals with recent lived experience on our CoC board of directors. Thank you very much, Mike, and thank you very much, Gary. They show up at the board of directors meetings every other month. They will be there on Friday the 3rd, talking about what is really, really important out there on the street. So thank you for that. Norm, if I keep this up here, can you still hear it?
Oh, you'd rather keep it up there?
because of the short cord.
It's a little less, but I think
Okay.
depending on how people's voices are.
Excellent.
See?
I can hear you.
Yes.
Okay, here.
No, can you put, is there a closer plug in it?
There's a plug here.
I'll get it going by the door.
You know what, let me, perfect.
Plug that in, you're good to go. I'll bring your meeting.
Thank you.
You're so accommodating.
We do what we can.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay, Norm, how is that?
Boom.
Is that echoey?
Fine.
Is that on the end?
Yeah.
Is it on the echo setting? Is it echoey?
It's a
No.
little bit
Okay.
wordy, but not too bad.
Okay. Thank you. There's an echo setting and a non-echo setting, and I can't really hear the difference from here.
Very up, now we come.
Okay, so back to where we were.
Okay.
Okay, so thank you both very much for serving on the board of directors. So now let's go ahead and get into some of the meat of why we are here. Before we do that though, Mr. Chair, do you want to call for a motion to approve the consent agenda? Okay.
I'm still in review. I'm still trying to catch up.
Okay, so I will go ahead and do that then. Has everybody reviewed the consent agenda?
Yes.
Okay, do we have any edits to the consent agenda? All right, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Thank you very much, I appreciate that. You were not a registered committee member yet, so I get that. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mel. Thank you, Pat. I have a motion and a second, and Mel was our motion, Pat was our second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed, nay? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
What is the consent agenda?
Oh,
Yes.
Great question.
I should know that too.
that is a great question. And that is one of the things that we will go through when we, or that was one of the things that I was planning on going through with the 2 things from now. But let's talk about that now because what on earth just happened? The consent agenda is the stuff that we need to review for really easy approval. Consent agenda is going to be the member attendance. That is not non-member attendance. I don't track guest attendance on this list, it's just members. So we have member attendance, we have meeting minutes. Maybe there's something else that needs a really quick approval that we've talked about in previous meetings or something like that. That will get added to the consent agenda. If there is something on the consent agenda, let's say we were working on a policy last month, and this month we just needed a quick approval, and I added that to the consent agenda. If we needed to talk about that more before it got approved, we could pull it out of the consent agenda, and then we can just approve the minutes and the attendance. Then we can have a separate conversation about that policy and approve it or deny it separately. So the consent agenda are just the really quick approval things at the very beginning of the meeting, like our attendance and our meeting minutes. Thank you very much for asking and for making sure that folks know what on earth is going on, because sometimes I babble. Okay, so now we're going to talk about meeting planning. So I know that we had previously approved meeting dates. Unfortunately, some things have come up at the COC level, and I have been asked to please reschedule the meetings. So on that note, I wanted to ask if this group, the dates are there on page 5 of the agenda, has any thoughts on hosting our meeting on the 4th Wednesday of each month, the 1st Wednesday of each month, or the 2nd Wednesday of each month? And only members can officially vote, but I will absolutely take feedback from everybody in the group.
This is a permanent change?
Yes, ma'am.
So it's the
Oh,
first.
wait, hold on. Everybody who speaks should have the microphone.
So this is a permanent change we're requesting,
Yes, ma'am.
and we wanted to switch from Thursday to Wednesdays.
No, there is a, since I am so loud, I will go ahead and do this. Everybody else must have the microphone. There is the 4th Wednesday, the 1st Wednesday, or the 2nd Thursday. So there are 3 options there, 2 Wednesdays and 1 Thursday. Thank you.
So I just want to make sure that the fourth Wednesday, 2 of those appointments or meetings are gonna need to be rescheduled. The first Wednesday, only 1. Is that correct?
Yes.
Am I looking at it correct?
Any other questions? Thoughts?
Oh, this is to change the meeting?
Yes.
Oh. Well. Well, in my case, on Wednesdays, I'm a keyboardist and a pianist, and I play for a church at 6 o'clock every Wednesday. So. But the second Thursday is fine, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
At that time. It's unfortunate, I didn't realize you changed things.
Well, it
Because
just,
we were okay with
this just happened.
Thursdays,
this
right?
just happened.
Oh,
this
it
is
just
just-
happened.
This is
yeah.
just happening right now.
I like the Thursday.
Okay, all right.
The second Thursday of each month.
Okay, so is that an official motion and an official second?
Yes.
Okay, hold on, we'll be right back. Anybody else have any thoughts, any points of discussion?
Make this clear, you're changing it from a Thursday to a Tuesday?
No. It's in the paperwork right here.
Page 5.
So last
Second
will be the
Thursday.
second Thursday. All right.
And at that point, just at some point, we gotta start meeting on the 3rd week of the month, and then we've done them all.
Well, Dan was just saying we should meet by monthly.
Do you mean twice a month?
I think we roll along twice a week.
Oh, y'all don't wanna see me at 6 a.m.
Monday morning.
I am not as quirky as 6 a.m. Okay, so we do have an official motion, for the second Thursday. We wanna go ahead and call for a vote on that, or have further discussion? Madam Secretary would like to call for a vote, so all in favor of the second Thursday of the month, say aye. All opposed, nay? Anybody want to abstain? One abstention?
One more chair.
Okay. I'm required to sit there. Okay, wonderful. Thank you all very much for that. I am sorry for the inconvenience, but I sincerely appreciate the flexibility. Okay. Next, what do we have next? Here's CSC 101 and board governance. Okay, so in one of our last meetings, not the very last one, but one of our last meetings, we talked about how we needed a few different kinds of trainings, or we wanted to engage in a few different kinds of trainings. One of them being board governance. So what on earth does a board do? What does a committee do? Why are we here? And what is the impact we will have? I don't understand this little speaker.
Things aren't made like they.
Right.
$27.
I
was so excited about it.
Oh,
Wait, it stopped?
What else did it
I should have
cover?
brought my speaker.
I charged it. I really did. I charged it for like 30 hours.
Oh.
Okay.
We did just have a full moon.
There we go.
We did.
Okay, so, oh, by the way, anybody didn't sign in,
I got it.
thank you. Okay, so, let's start with COC 101. What on earth is a continuum of care? Why do we care about the continuum of care? Well, like I said earlier, the continuum of care, that is the COC. Remember, There is a slideshow, y'all change your mind.
Yeah.
So the COC is the group of individuals, businesses, elected officials and whatnot, all working together to try and end homelessness. COCs are all over the country. It is not unique to Pinellas County, okay? These are mandated by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD. And they are located all over the country. The purpose of the COC is to coordinate efforts amongst different service providers and government entities to make sure that we are effectively ending homelessness, okay? The vision of the Pinellas Continuum of Care is to make homelessness rare, brief, and a one-time occurrence. Our goal is ultimately to reach what we call functional zero. Functional zero means that there are enough beds for everyone who needs them. That means if you become homeless, within a day, there is a spot for you. That is what functional zero is. Now, that does not mean that there won't be folks who sleep on the street and whatnot, because some folks don't want to go to the bed that's available or whatever. That's a different story. But functional zero means that our community has the capacity to shelter everyone who needs shelter. So that's our goal. Now we do that, we work towards that by working with a lot of partners. The COC has over 100 members. Many of them are organizations who work within our community. To be a member of the COC, I'll keep calling it that, but just once again, it's the Continuum of Care. That's what the little logo at the top of your agenda is. To be a member of the Continuum of Care, you have to live in, work in, go to school in, or serve Pinellas County. That means if you don't do any of those things, but you come down here to the beach sometimes, wonderful. Thank you for joining us. Please feel free to donate to our cause. Unfortunately, you are not eligible to be a member. But we do absolutely encourage support, thank you. So the COC has a bunch of different boards and committees. There's the board of directors, and the board of directors, they are really, really responsible for deciding and approving a bunch of policies that impact all of us. They impact people on the street, they impact people in shelter, they impact people in housing. Because they are making and approving things like funding priorities, priority populations. What's a priority population? That means, are we gonna focus our funding efforts on seniors or on families? Is there a specific zip code that we need to focus our funding efforts and our service efforts on? That's what the COC Board of Directors is really, really responsible for. We also get, this year it was $6.5 million from HUD, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, through a process that we call the NOFO, the Notice of Funding Opportunity. Now, this is something that COCs all across the country applied for, and I'm excited to say that in Pinellas County, we historically do pretty well compared to our neighbors. And we use that $6.5 million for permanent housing, for transitional housing, for safe havens, for emergency shelters, and for planning dollars. So, so we have to be able to run a database and whatnot. So there's a little bit of administrative stuff in there. But the COC board actually creates a rank and review committee, and they take applications from service providers all across the county, rank them, and of course they use those priority populations and whatnot that they set earlier in the year when they were doing the ranking, and decide who will, if HUD gives us money, receive that HUD money. So when you see, for instance, that Foley got more money from HUD through the NOFO for permanent supportive housing, that is because the review and rank committee on the COC got together and decided that that was the project, one of the projects, that was going to really be able to help people. They have a proven track record, they have a good system in place, they have good metrics, good goals, and they got approved by us, and then they got approved by HUD. So now they have all of this money. Wonderful. But how does that impact everybody in here? One, the more money we get, the more housing we get, very exciting. Two, the review and rank committee looks for members every single year. And if there is somebody on this committee that is really passionate about data, that loves talking about accounting and things like that, the review and rank committee is somewhere where you should absolutely make your mark. I think it would be wonderful, and to be totally honest, I think it might help us get more money as a community to have folks with lived experience on that committee. Because to be totally honest, HUD does give more money when you involve people with lived experience in the process, because HUD also wants us to live up to that nothing about you without you ideal. What else does the CoC do? We have a funders council and a providers council, and that is a group very much like this one, except for that it's made up of funders, or that it's made up of providers, and they set a lot of priorities, a lot of policies that impact our system. Now, only organizational members of the CoC can be members of those specific committees, but they are open meetings. So for instance, they are meeting on Thursday, May 2nd. Anybody here who wanted to log into that meeting on Zoom would be more than welcome to do so. You could also come and attend in person. It's just not a very big room, so I might recommend joining on Zoom personally. We also have the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, and the DEI Committee is responsible for making sure that we're actually taking care of everybody. You know, the services are equitable. And that doesn't mean that everybody gets the exact same thing, because what works for me, super might not work for Mike. What works for Mike, super might not work for me. So it's about making sure that we meet people where they are, so that they can get the services and the help that they need, and so that our entire community can be healthier and more effective. Because that's what having a diverse community means. We have our Data and System Performance Committee. And our Data and System Performance Committee, I'll be honest, review a lot of data. That is, I think this committee is more fun, but I'm not a numbers gal. The DSP committee, as we call it, the Data and System Performance Committee, they review a lot of information out of what we call the Homeless Management Information System, HMIS, that is our central database. And a lot of that data is used and was given to, for instance, the Funders and Providers Council, so that they can accurately set those priorities that we talked about earlier. Then there is us, here at the Lived Experience Committee. And right now we are working on some advocacy issues. But ultimately, this group will have the opportunity to impact policies and whatnot as well. Right now, we've really got to talk about this advocacy stuff because it is really, really pressing. But ultimately, we will have a lot of opportunities to impact a lot of what goes on here in Pinellas County. And then my last committee, the advocacy committee, hasn't started yet. So my last committee for right now is the Point in Time Planning Committee. How many people have answered one of those surveys in January when somebody walks up with a clipboard and says, "Hi, I'm here to do a housing survey. Are you experiencing homelessness?" Sound familiar? Do you have a bus pass?
Yes, I did.
There
I
we
finally
go.
got a bus pass, I remember.
There we go. So that's been my program for the last few years. We are working on revamping it. And to be totally honest, I would love this committee's help in a few months, because I think that people will listen to me enough. So that is our other committee. The point in time count. Why on earth do we do that? Why on earth do hundreds of volunteers go out there and survey our neighbors experiencing homelessness? Because that is the only way.
I don't get it. That is the only way when we do the point in time count? That is the only way.
All right, I attend church or I have.
It's not on you. I wish I had answers. There is an echo setting to this. It's the first one. Okay, so the point in time count, we do that because it is the only way we get that money from HUD. If we don't do the point in time count, we are not eligible for that $6.5 million.
Oh.
Outside of that though,
That data gives us a snapshot of homelessness in our community. Because of the point in time count, we know that there are a minimum of 2,144 people experiencing homelessness in our community on any given night. That is not everybody experiencing homelessness. That's who we were able to survey and who we had in shelter. That data goes to HUD, it goes to Tallahassee. If you hear somebody in DC talk about how many people are experiencing homelessness in our community, they get that data from the point in time count. That data is why we know that Pinellas County has the highest rate of veteran homelessness in the country for a community our size. We have the second highest rate of family homelessness for a community our size. We have the Hold on. I'm about to speak out of turn, and I don't want to do that. Oh no, this is just. Oh no, I have my other presentation up. Okay, you know what, I'll send you those stuff later. The point is, we are number 5 for individual homelessness, number 5 for overall homelessness, and number 5 for chronic homelessness as well. We lead the country in some really, really upsetting statistics.
Oh, boy.
And we get that data because volunteers like you and our other friends go out there and survey people, complete those surveys, answer those surveys. So thank you for participating. And thank you for volunteering next January. So those are our committees. As you can see, there's a lot of work that gets done within the CoC. We all have to work together, which means kind of taking off our individual hats. When we walk into the CoC, I'm not just talking about the Homeless Leadership Alliance. I'm not just talking about the Lived Experience Committee. I'm talking about homelessness in Pinellas County. I'm talking about housing in Pinellas County. Pinellas County is the 8th most cost-burdened community in the country. We say that again. We are the 8th most cost-burdened, rent-burdened, metropolitan area in the entire country. That is not when compared to communities our size, that is period. For every 21 extremely low-income people in the Tampa Bay area, for every 100 extremely low-income people in the Tampa Bay area or households in the Tampa Bay area, there are 21 affordable and available units. For every 100 households that need them, there are 21 affordable and available units. The CoC is working to correct that as best as we possibly can. So that's what we do. So that's who we are. You, as members of the CoC, are members of the Continuum of Care. There's also the Homeless Leadership Alliance. The HLA does not have any members. We do have a board. We do have employees. No members though. The HLA, that's my employer. We are lead agency in the CoC. That means that we submit that application to HUD. We manage the big database. We lead all of these meetings. But really, the CoC is where all of the action is, and that is where your membership lies. So that's a little bit about the CoC. All of this information, by the way, is available on our website. And I will send out the CoC 101 PowerPoint. Y'all didn't want to see today. After our meeting here, so you do have that as well. You can always reference later or ask me questions later. Does anybody have any questions about CoC before we talk about a little bit of board governance? All right. If you come up with questions later, ask them. You know how to reach me.
What are the boards?
Oh, hold on.
What are the committees for the CoC board?
So that is the executive committee, which is the group of the chair, the vice chair, the secretary, the funders council chair, the providers council chair. And at some point, they will probably also reach out to one of you gentlemen because there is a dedicated lived experience chair on that as well. So wonderful. There will be a lived experience representative on the executive committee as well at some point in the future. Then there is the funders council, providers council, data and system performance committee, diversity, equity, and inclusion committee, us here in the lived experience committee, the point in time planning committee, and then once it gets started, the advocacy committee. And then, of course, once it gets started, there is also an experience committee for folks under the age of 24. That is the youth action board, but until we really get established, we're not gonna focus on establishing the youth action board. Anybody under the age of 24 who wants to join a committee, should come and join this one for now. They have good experience. And then we can maybe break off as a subcommittee, after that. But so those are those. All right, any other questions about the COC before we move on?
Is there a technology committee that goes under any of this?
The Data and System Performance Committee.
Can I join that one?
I can absolutely, if you send me an email, I will get you in touch with the chair for that committee. And the next meeting, the meetings are all on our website, and you are welcome to join. They're the third Thursday of every month, which is, I'm not sure the next one. 1, 2, 3, that is gonna be May 16th at 9 o'clock in the morning. Those are at Allendale United Methodist Church in St. And then the details for that will all be on our website as well, where all of our meetings are stored. Anything else?
I was just saying, I have some of these, if anybody would like.
Wonderful, if anybody would like a little,
Yeah.
COC brochure, please see Jennifer, she has a few. Okay, so board governance, let's talk a little bit about boards and what boards do before we get into advocacy. So you heard me talk, we have a lot of boards and committees. But it's really important that we figure out how those committees work and what procedures we follow to make them effective. So this committee is responsible for making suggestions, recommendations to the board of directors. That's really what we're doing here. We are creating materials, we are gathering information, we are making recommendations that will be presented to the board of directors. Now, that's not to say that we need to get board approval if we make a flyer or something like that. I would send it to the chair of the COC, and I would say, here's the flyer, what do you think? And then she would approve it. If she told me we needed full board approval, we would go that route. But we are here to make recommendations to the board of directors, just like every other committee and council in the COC. That's what all of us do. We make recommendations to the board. So we have in this committee a charter, which is available on our website. That charter was created by some of the folks in this room and was approved in December. We initially approved in December, then it was officially approved at the January Board of Directors meeting, and then we got together on January 30th, it was, and officially approved, yep. So we have officially chartered as of January 30th, and then during our February meeting, we elected leadership, and we have our first lived experience co-chair here in Mike, and we have our first lived experience secretary here in Cap, and we also had Wayne as our other co-chair. Wayne has resigned, but that leaves a vacancy for somebody else to fill next month. So how we do things in meetings is there is the agenda. The agenda will be created between me and LEAC leadership. I know not everybody likes LEAC, they prefer LEAC. So the agenda gets created between leadership and the HLA. Anybody who wants to have input on the agenda, by the way, please just reach out to leadership and let them know what you think should be on the agenda. We will consider it. And then we go ahead and we make sure that we have anything that we might need to review for the day in this packet so that we can share that as well. This gets finally approved by leadership before it gets sent out. So if for some reason you don't have this, it's probably one of us. It's probably sitting in one of our inboxes, and we apologize. That is, there we go again. That is the agenda and the meeting packet. Now, the agenda will always include the consent agenda. As we previously discussed, the consent agenda is where you will find meeting attendance, Now, it's really important to remember that unless you have special accommodation, members cannot miss more than 3 meetings in a year. If you miss more than 3 meetings in a year, you risk being removed from the membership. Now, if you aren't feeling well, if something comes up, things happen, life happens, that's why there's that little buffer there. But also, reach out to me or reach out to your chair and let them know that you cannot make it and ask for accommodation. Maybe what we do is you Zoom in and we allow two-way participation specifically for you for that meeting. Or maybe you just get a bye for that week because that's what the chair decided. But that is the rule for attendance. And if you cannot attend and you need a special accommodation to attend, please reach out to your leadership. That is Mike. That is Kat. Or you can always reach out to me as well. Then going down, we have the minutes. Kat, you and I will get together about that a little bit later. The minutes here, they will have the attendance from the previous meeting, and then they will have notes from the previous meeting. The idea of minutes is that they're more formal than notes. These are the notes from the last meeting, but the idea of minutes is that anyone can pick them up and figure out what was going on in that meeting. So Rick was not at our March meeting, but the idea behind minutes is that he should be able to pick this up and say, okay, the consent agenda got approved, and that was, what was the consent agenda? Okay, it was the meeting minutes and the member attendance, okay. So that's what that is. Anything in here should really explain what happened in detail in the last meeting, so that nobody has to wonder. So that next year, when somebody asks me, when was the lived experience charter approved and what was the discussion around that? Because we'll have to review our charter at some point in the future. And me or somebody else will have to look back at the notes from that meeting and figure out what on earth we talked about so that we can figure out how to best present it in the future. That's what minutes are. So make sure we know how to do that. And then anything else in the packet is just to support what we have on the agenda. We will always try and put the action items up at the top and the information items a little bit lower down. What on earth is an action item versus an information item, you might ask? I know I did when I first started. An information item is what I'm doing right now. This is for your soul awareness, just to help make things a little bit clearer. It might be an article, it might be a presentation, it might be a speaker coming in. It might even just be a discussion that we are having because we need to talk something out, and then next month we'll vote on it. That's what information only items are. Action items are the items that we need to approve. So if we have the consent agenda, that's something we have to approve. The new meeting dates, I am not going to pick a new meeting date without approval from this committee. That would be crazy, because I might just go there and nobody else is there. All of a sudden, we're meeting on Saturdays at 8 a.m. and I'm the only one there. By the way, that is not going to happen. I am not going to, I'm not going to be in a meeting on Saturday at 8 a.m. unless there's really happening. Oh, thank you. I appreciate you.
Anything after 11 is good.
I'm with you. After 11, I can be there. Before that, I look kind of scary, honestly. So that's what the information versus actions are. Now, when it comes to the actions, how do we address that? Well, normally the chair or the secretary will call for a motion. And what that means is that one of our registered committee members wants to say, yay, I approve, I vote yes. So you will make the first motion to approve. However, every motion requires a second. So if Mike motions to approve the consent agenda, if Pat calls for a motion and Mike motions to approve the consent agenda, it is not approved yet until Norm calls for a second. Norm seconds that motion. Now we have action on the table. We can take official action and we can vote to either approve or reject those meeting minutes or that consent agenda. Once we have the second on the table, we can continue conversation, but then we can go ahead and we can just say, all right, all those in favor, say aye. All All those opposed, say nay. And anybody in favor means that we are voting yes. Anybody opposed means that we are voting no. For every vote, there is always the option to abstain. Abstaining means I do not want to vote. I neither vote yes or no. I'm just here as a neutral party. I don't know what your personal reason might be for abstaining. Maybe you don't have to have been at the last meeting to vote for minutes, but maybe you just don't feel comfortable voting for the minutes because you weren't at the last meeting. And you want it on the record that you did not vote to approve. That's when you would say, I abstain, and then Pat and I will make note of that. And in the official meeting minutes, it will say, Mike called for a motion, Norm seconded, Jennifer abstained, motion passed unanimously. That's what it would say. When it comes to voting, only official committee members may vote. Okay? To be an official committee member, you must be a registered member of the Pinellas Continuum of Care. The Pinellas Continuum of Care membership, CoC membership, is free for anybody who has experienced homelessness within the last 7 years. If you have experienced homelessness 8 years ago, we would still love to have you as a member of both the CoC and the committee. But we do ask that you join as an individual member, as we just changed the name. Community advocate, I think is what we changed the name to. Used to be concerned citizen, but we thought that sounded limiting. So as a community advocate, your membership dues are $20 annually. Those $20 go towards helping you pay for our stipends in here. However, there's always the option to request a scholarship. If that $20 is a little bit too much, that is totally okay. Sometimes $20 is too much. All you have to do when you complete the membership application is check the box that says you want to inquire about scholarships. And then to be totally clear, I will say, cool, you're approved. Unless the board secretary has any follow-up questions, but thus far she is not. Organizations also have the opportunity to be CoC members. Faith-based organizations, nonprofit organizations, government entities, and for-profit businesses can all be CoC members. Their dues start at $150 a year and go up to $500 a year. However, we've just rolled out some sliding fee scales for organizations as well, because that was a little bit much for smaller nonprofits and religious organizations. So organizations who, for instance, have fewer than 5 full-time employees might qualify for free CoC membership if they want to. Because we want to make sure that every voice is at the table. That's really the point. We want to fundraise so that we have money for stipends and things like that. But most importantly, we really want to have everybody's voice at the table. We want to have that representation. So that's the point of the new fees and everything. Stipends, as I just mentioned, are offered to lived experience committee members who are also specifically lived experience CoC members. Okay? If you are a committee member who does not qualify for that, has experienced homelessness within 7 years, thank you very, very much for being here. I cannot tell you how much we appreciate your presence. However, you do not qualify for a stipend. Those are reserved for our folks who qualify for that lived experience membership, again, has experienced homelessness within 7 years, and is an official CoC member. And then once you're an official CoC member, even same meeting, we'll go ahead and add you to the list, and you can qualify for it once you're on that list. Yes. We do this not to be cruel, but so that we can accurately budget, because otherwise, to be totally honest, we just won't be able to go that far. The first meetings we had, there were like 40 to 60 people at. It was a lot. It was really expensive, really worthwhile, but we just can't do that every month. We also provide transportation assistance. There will be a bus pass for everybody here who needs it. You don't have to be a committee member. You don't have to be a CoC member. If you came here and you need a bus pass, I have that for you. If you are a committee member, a lived experience committee member, and you need help with the monthly bus pass, I'm gonna pass this around again. Could you please put a star next to your name if you need assistance with the monthly bus pass for me? Just pass that down. And then I will go ahead and I will reach out. The monthly, why? Why does this happen to me? The monthly bus pass is only like $10 for me. You know what, you're right, that's exactly what happened.
Point, Marco. Making right up.
This is why I knew I should have gotten the $40 one.
I'm sorry.
I should have brought my full JBO
Yeah.
and things like Fisher Price.
You know what, I'm gonna take it home and I'm gonna figure it out. I'll figure it out. I'm trying, I really am. Okay, so yeah, please make sure if you need assistance with that bus pass, you write that down there, because we still only have the 1-day bus passes for now.
Oh, I was just gonna ask.
Oh, no, with the mic.
Oh, sorry, I was gonna ask, do you also do the gas cards?
So once we get the monthly bus passes rolled out, I can also start doing $10 I can also start doing $10 gas cards. Yes. Yes, so we can go ahead and do that. We want to make sure that you are able to attend this meeting, and then we also have quarterly COC meetings. So the Continuum of Care membership meets quarterly. We just met on April 9th. We will meet again on August 13th, and then again on November 12th. Man, can you guys tell how many times I've written those weeks down? Our August 13th meeting will be at the Pinellas County Housing Authority. Okay? There will even be, I'm really excited, an opportunity for folks to tour one of their affordable housing units before that meeting. And we are doing that because we want folks to stop being so afraid of affordable housing. We would love it if folks stopped showing up to city council meetings to protest affordable housing. So we are trying our best to show them how wonderful and beautiful affordable housing can be. So please come to those meetings. Please use that bus pass to come to those meetings. If you are a lived experience member of the CoC, even if you are not a committee member, if you are a lived experience member of the CoC who has experienced homelessness within the last 7 years, you will qualify for a stipend for the CoC membership meeting as well.
Why what?
The CoC membership meeting, you'll qualify for the stipend, the gift card. We want to make sure that everybody's there who wants to be there and that folks can meaningfully participate. During our November meeting for the CoC, we will be electing board leadership. So during the November CoC membership meeting, November 12th, we will elect a few new members to the CoC's board of directors. We'll do that in December, or in November, sorry. Just a couple other little housekeeping things. When it comes to speaking, it is really important that only one person speaks at a time. Okay, that means I totally love side conversations. I think that they are very important, and I'm known to have a few of them myself. But there are some voices that carry, and that makes it harder for folks who might not be able to hear. And also, it makes it harder for the recording. So please, one person talks at a time. We said this in the beginning of the meeting, but from here on out, if you aren't me and you aren't yelling, or you don't have a microphone, it is not your turn to speak. If we need to, we can start instituting 3-minute rules for speaking, if we need to. Okay, we don't need to do that yet, I don't think, but if leadership decides at any point, I can start bringing a timer and we can do 2 to 3 minute limitations for speaking, just to make sure the meetings get moved along, okay? Do we have any questions about how meetings run, about what on earth the agenda is, or anything like that before we move on to the advocacy discussion? You can always ask me later as well. You know I'm available. My hours are Monday through Friday, 9 to 5:30. I am always available until 6 unless there's something going on. But if you need me, please reach me during those hours. All right. Now, with all of that being said, I'm gonna have a sip of this water. Because my goodness. Okay. All right. Now we are going to discuss advocacy. We talked about this a little bit in the last meeting. There is a little bit of information about this in your meeting packet on page, thank you. Oh, actually page 6 and 7. So on page 6 and 7, we're gonna break out into a little breakout group at some point. As we discussed last time around, there are a couple advocacy issues right now that we really need to address as a community. So I'm gonna start off by talking about Johnson v. Grants pass because it was just heard by the Supreme Court on Monday. The case of Johnson v. Grants Pass came out of Oregon. And this case takes already decided case law, where they say it is cruel and unusual to arrest folks or criminalize homelessness when folks have no safer place to sleep. We're, for some reason, relitigating that now. And the Supreme Court heard a case on Monday, this past Monday. No verdict has been rendered. I must confess, I am not feeling positive after reading the opinions that have come out from the judges. But we will address that when it happens. There's not a lot that we can do right this second about it. So Johnson v. Grants Pass is something that we are looking at and considering, and we are just kind of in a holding state right now for. But that is federal legislation that might have a real impact on us here in Pinellas County. Here locally, in Florida, there is also legislation, it has been passed, that will impact us. This is Florida statute 125.0231, I think. Pretty sure that's the number, 125.0231. I don't think you can officially look it up as a Florida statute yet because, you know, it doesn't actually go effective until October 1st. But this law is the anti-camping bill. This was signed in March. It will go into effect October 1st. What this new law says is that nobody can sleep outside on public property. What is public property?
Every place in Pinellas Park.
Mostly. Now that does not include, for instance, my front yard. My front yard is my property. If I want to let you sleep in my front yard, that is my prerogative. That is my choice. But the library parking lot, for instance, that is public property. The beach, that is public property. A bus stop, that is public property.
The parking lot at Wawa.
Wawa parking lot might be public property. So unless you have specific permission, thank you, unless you have specific permission to sleep on private property, effective October 1, they are, yes, they're criminalizing sleeping outside on public property, okay? Now,
Does private, stores, like stores, you know, with their areas, what is that considered private, you know, commercial property?
Most of them are private.
yeah, that'll depend on exactly what the storefront is. There are some storefronts that might be public property, there are some that might be private property. A parking lot, for instance, would probably be private property. However, I think most Wawas will stop allowing people to sleep there.
What about vehicles, cars?
Great question. Great question. So vehicles, if you are legally parked, okay, legally parked in an area that you are allowed to be parked in with a registered vehicle, okay, your vehicle has to be legal. And you have to be parked in a legal spot during legal hours. You're good. You're good. That is a legal place to park. They can't tell you what you can or cannot do there, so long as you are in a legal parking spot, in a legal car, you are good. If, however, your car is not registered, or if you are in an illegal spot, then you would fall outside of that, you would not be protected. Great question. Oh, hold on, I think there was a question over here. Was it? Did you get an answer? Okay, then go right ahead, Cassandra.
What is considered a legal spot? Can it be in a public, like not at Wawa, obviously, but what at Walmart, or what if it's
Central Avenue.
Central Avenue?
So Walmart is private, that would be up to Walmart. Central Ave, if there are signs, if it's a painted spot and there are signs that indicate you can park there, you can park there. If the sign says no parking between 8 p.m. and 6 a.m. and you're parked there at 10 p.m., then that is not a legal parking job. You have parked illegally. And even without this new law, you parked illegally, they'll give you in trouble for that. Good questions, good questions. Now, effective January 1, private citizens and businesses will be allowed to sue local governments for allowing public sleeping. That means that if, come January 1st, somebody is sleeping out here, there needs to be a bench there. Thank you. If somebody is sleeping out front,
Oh, I went off.
if somebody is here in the parking lot on January 1st and you are sleeping, that is illegal. And guess what? A private citizen can sue the city of Pinellas Park for it. They will not sue you as an individual. You as an individual are not going to be sued for this. The city of Pinellas Park might be though. So what does the government say to do to avoid these lawsuits? Set up safe sleeping zones. However, the safe sleeping zones have to be in non-residential areas that won't negatively impact property value and won't make local businesses complain. These designated sleeping areas also have to provide running water, restrooms, security. They cannot be in place for longer than 365 days. They have to provide mental health and substance use treatment. They are drug and alcohol free. And they have to be certified by the Department of Children and Family Services. You as an individual do not need to be certified by DCF, but this area must be. Please raise your hand if you know where in Pinellas County we have space in a non-residential area that people will not complain about. Just-
It doesn't exist.
If you happen to come across it, please let me know. So we have a problem here. We have a real problem as a community because there's literally nowhere that any of us can think of that this exists or that this
That's
can
why they
exist.
said it.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. It's built-in problem. Also, as of right now, there is no funding for this. There is discussion of $20 to $30 million for the entire state, one time. Now, I want y'all to consider how quickly $20 to $30 million might go across the entire state of Florida over 1 year, and that's not recurring. So we set up the first safe sleep zone. Okay, cool, year one, we got it. What on earth do we do for year two?
Right.
What on earth do we do? Do we take money away from the other shelters or the permanent supportive housing that we were planning on putting up? Because we can't just invent more money. So it's a real serious problem, a real serious consideration for us as a community. The CoC is taking an education standpoint. So we want to educate people on the cost of criminalizing homelessness. What we want to do here in this group though is show people the face of homelessness, show people why they should care, why they shouldn't sue the city of St. Pete for allowing you to sleep outside. You don't even need to have a sleeping bag or a blanket. You just need a sleeping, and they can sue. I can get up there sleeping, just taking a nap, and they can sue as of January 1st. At least that's how it's written. So we want to discourage people from doing that. We want to encourage people to care about their neighbors. It should not be on you to make people care. This is a burden you should not have to bear. You have enough going on, and you should not have to do this. But I'm asking you to do this. I'm asking you to help me make people care. Again, you shouldn't have to, but that's what we have to do. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna break up into two groups, okay? We're going to divide into two groups. You can just divide the room in half here. One group is going to talk about video interviews, and the other group is going to talk about handouts. Because I would love if we could, and we don't have to interview people in this room. We are planning interviews right now. We are not doing interviews. So we would like to do 3 to 5 minute interviews, have it all planned out so that we can have this to share on social media. So that when a reporter calls and they say, can we talk to somebody experiencing homelessness about their take on this? We say, absolutely. In fact, here you go. We have that ready to go for you right here. We want to get the idea of caring, the idea of people being people in front of more people. The more people who see and hear our stories, the more people will give it up. So that's what we are working on here. In the first group, we'll work on, that's group one, we'll work on interview questions, interview planning. What kind of questions should we be asking? The second group, it doesn't have to be this specifically, but the second group will work on planning a handout. What kind of things do we want to be able to put into people's hands? So that we can say, all right, I know you don't have time to talk about this right now, but before you go into your meeting next week, please consider this.
you know? So that we can have them out of the library, make sure people care. So that's what we're gonna be doing here. We're going to break out into 2 groups. We're going to have these conversations, and then I would love it if the groups could come back together at the very end, just to give a little highlight of what you think is great, what you think is good. And then I would like to really start putting this into work. If the handout group gives me really actionable material, I will, before our next meeting, put this into a document, send it to our leadership, and make it happen as best I can. You know, we'll work on scheduling those interviews, even if it's just me on my iPhone. We will make it happen, okay? There was one question.
Before we do that, I just want to get some clarification on, the term residential area.
Yes.
Would that include commercial areas that are surrounded by residences, like an abandoned Walmart? Or would that not be considered a residential area, but it's commercial?
In theory, I think that would be considered. No, not doing. That is great, great question and debatable. I think that it would be considered, if not exactly a residential area, the idea is that, or as it's written, it's in an area that folks will not complain about. So if it's in an industrial area, but there are a bunch of homes nearby, folks might complain. Even if it's just a business that folks are really specific about, they might complain. So it's not even just residential.
I had a question on that Supreme Court case. I think it's Oregon. Depending on how long the Supreme Court debates, right? If they make a decision one way or the other, how would that affect, assuming they strike that down, would that automatically negate Florida's law? Or would Florida have to file something? And that's a precedent that they set, you know what I mean? On the other hand, if they uphold that, then that's much more difficult. We have to find solutions. Okay.
That is another great question, Norm, and the answer is, unfortunately, even if the Oregon stuff is struck down, we still face this in Florida. So we are still looking at this in Florida. We still have to combat this in Florida. Great question. So let's go ahead, let's break into our 2 groups. I'm gonna call this group 1, and I'm gonna call this group 2. So group 1, your instructions are on page 6 of the packet. Group 2, your instructions are on page 7 of the packet. And I'm going to pass out, I printed out the talking points that this group came up with during our last meeting, because that was a productive session. So here's a couple for each group for those talking points. And then for this group here, for group 2, I also have examples of my sample flyers. So go ahead, break up in your groups. If you need to swing a chair or 2 around here in the middle, please feel free. And for when we reconvene.
So what are the groups?
You are split in half. So Norm, you should go over here. No, you're here.
Yes, I love that.
Norm, why don't you come sit in the middle?
What, sit up there?
I'll bring a chair around for you.
And then
This is Mark.
This is group 1?
2.
Oh, this is 2? And that's 1?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
This is the group that goes up there.
Do you want me to bring them to the chair? So do we feel like we don't work over here? Do you have questions? Okay. So the idea here is that we will create a campus so that we have something to give people to show them a little bit about homelessness, about what it means to.
Well, one thing, we can't put all kinds of detail on here, but we may be able to put, you know, like websites, things like that, which people can use
Yeah.
from this flyer,
I
where we have the information, like, you know, right?
Yes, absolutely. I would make sure, so, like I said, the COC is working on educating about like the intellectual stuff, you know? This is how much it costs to build an encampment versus this is how much it costs to actually house somebody. By the way, it's like 10 times more to build an encampment. So I think that
Well, this was put somebody in jail.
yes, that is what the
We're gonna keep somebody in jail.
So that's what the COC is working on. I would love it if this could help people understand why they don't want to.
Which is downtown city, yeah, that's what's needed, but I'm saying that's why, like, and then on the street. The high end.
So that's. Who is it gonna?
Well, another thing.
So, but, hold on, Mark, one person at a time.
I mean, I know there are people that care, but like
I agree. My thought personally was that this would be geared towards community members because the cities aren't really the issue. Once people start suing the cities, will be the problem. So my thought was that we should try and make our neighbors support. However, this is your document. If you would like this to be geared towards council members, that is your decision. Make this for council members. Then make the document for council members, make that your audience, make elected officials, make government entities your audience, and then write it for that. Okay, so what do so what do you want elected officials to know about what it means to be homeless? About how it takes, I did write a few ideas and comments down here, so I'm sorry. So, how do you get out of that? Okay, so talk about it. That's what we need, So I might say, all right, well, there are resources available, but if you're seeking the resources in Tarpon Springs, it's not gonna happen. Exactly, talk about it.
Not all homeless people are being homeless, but things happen, it could happen to a direct family member.
There you go. Exactly, perfect. What are possibilities?
Trying to get the
That's the idea of that like old man who just drinks $2 out of our head, because that is not the case. We're not really homelessness. I don't know if you're homelessness.
Well, one thing, elected officials, the law says that they can be sued.
North, up to the group. The group, they're your group. All right.
Wow.
All right. I would ask the same.
How we do it? All right, looks like we have two separate groups going here. Okay, yeah, we are worried about grouping right now. So if we need to, we can work in two separate groups, I'm okay with that. Or if you want to make one cohesive group, please do. But do we have any questions about what we're doing right now? Love it, love it, awesome. You already know. Do you guys have any questions about what we're doing? All right.
kind of questions would you do?
It's hard to do all that.
I'm showing you. Once they come to one class, less crime.
Today,
And
maybe
I'm seeing
not.
I might not make that focus here. What about people who get $700 and they spend that on
So. How long you been doing that?
On the street that day, like,
You're not trying to convince them, you're trying to
You did without
convince
vote.
them.
So they need to get
What we actually are.
It depends.
Well, trying to get a good
That's why-
picture. That's what I'm saying, yeah, like, yeah, two ways, good idea. But yeah, it's a good idea, but our job at the moment is to make sure that we're gonna have their wire, but it's not.
That's something that should be discussed, that should be one of your interview questions, or one of your interviews. What do you want to know about,
I
what's your
have
best,
services in general, but
finding that house,
Base of-
or, achieving those goals, what's the margin that people might not consider? And people might not consider, they can't work because every time he leaves the house, he might have seizures, might pass out. I'm gonna let know my current schedule, so that I'm not too, I don't wanna be too much, it's not my interview, can I try to get more, not be too much of me. Someone got your schedule, they can't be
You would
Yeah, maybe get close enough to you that.
I like to do that.
Or I already have.
I just didn't, and sometimes that people do care, especially I still think I'm like, they are, yeah, because I'm thinking, I'm like, you know what? Yeah. It's not on me, I need to.
Yes.
You know, it's like me, I'm kind of that, oh, no, not of course, and, that might be the judging is something to go through. It's something, you know,
To me, one of the first steps, one of the ultimate goals is housing. Housing, right? We're not good. It's not as like people lounging around on the street. Regardless what category the homeless person is.
So we will continue this for 5 minutes, and then we'll do a little recording.
Whether it's welfare, a job, or whatever the disability. That's where the, you know, what do you call it, the street outfit. We haven't even established that. That's the first step. Getting people into labor, you know, when I mean,
Then you've got the productive people. Then you've got the homeless people that are really trying, really want to the next step. They can offer them as a worst. And dealt, you're right.
I would like.
You know what I'm saying? It needs to be dealt with separately. Okay, you got a drug problem? These hospitals go to rehab. You can't be over here with two people that are done that. You know. You're gonna cause problems with that. You know what I'm saying? It's just, it's like a disease. I mean, it's. Dealt with separately.
I think.
Okay, you got a alcohol problem, so let's say.
Not your best ever.
That's what I'm saying.
There, I see right.
We all don't need.
Oh, yeah, that's
We're all gonna
Start off.
but not having.
They should be very often.
That's the wrong drug addict. Okay, I'm gonna catch you. I'm gonna read this. And I'm gonna say, I need to provide housing because everybody's in a different situation. No, that's what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is homelessness is homelessness. I agree, but that's not. That's a different issue. Well, that's what we're saying. We got like 2 minutes left to do this. We don't even get right to
Whatever's the problem, and they're in this situation.
what are we gonna put on here that's going to make people
Motivated, right?
yeah, motivated to provide housing?
I don't want to ask them. Oh, you're talking about the legislature. We're doing numbers.
They already have it, they're starting.
Well, it's just for very and
Let's get a bus.
Yeah. Where do you think that money is gonna pay those? It's gonna come the residents, all their taxes, the double, triple, because they got millions of dollars. That residents need to get called up.
The
residents need to get called.
How long have you been without?
$1 million.
Are you
Where's that $1 million
going
come from?
Tell me about when your wife was.
Yeah.
Well, my motivation
And if they wanna be treated, they can, if they wanna. Have you heard about the legislation making homelessness a crime?
Now I'm good laws, but yes. The only people that get money from is the residents. The taxes. That's the only place that they can get money. Yeah, they need money for school, they need money for public highway, whatever, or they need money for other uses. They have to raise taxes.
facing this law.
Just about 30 seconds left. Wait a minute.
Yes, I
So you're gonna see your.
Yes, and we should definitely be collaborating.
We can't answer that.
Like, I think the longer.
So that's why you have some but that is why the residents they don't care about it.
I agree, so I definitely All right, everybody, I'm gonna do a 30-second warning. Let's go ahead and wrap it. Let's wrap the conversation up.
How long have you been about about when your life is good? What does it mean? Have you heard about the new legislation? What are your thoughts? Are you seeking resources for the community?
Yeah.
What about,
I got the answer.
So what kind of
have you ever been to
resources?
have you ever been to
Oh, yes, that's a great one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Redistribution of wealth.
First, the explanation. So it's two things. Yeah, right. Resources.
If you make it back there, that's.
Yeah.
All right.
Everybody, if they've done it from me, like I need to get out of my
Like
yard,
every family
at the bus stop, and have
You should have another contest for the residents.
That's a good It's like, when it's a family, it's like sponsor, home members. I mean, it's.
Okay, paralyzed.
All right, I hate to stifle good conversation, but it's time for me to stifle.
We were directed to do.
No, not really. It's just time for us to talk about it. Okay. So, thank you all. I really appreciate all of the work that was just put into this. Give me 1 second. Okay, so what we're gonna do now is I am going to ask each group to have one person talk a little bit, just take 1 to 2 minutes to talk about what your group had to say, what you think might be a good idea and whatnot. So, I'll go ahead, I'll answer Norm's question, and then we're gonna start with group 1. What's that, Norm?
Oh, well, I was just gonna say, I think another group should, sympathetic churches.
Okay,
I
hold on, wait, hold it. Norm, it's not your
I
turn.
know.
Not your turn. Okay.
Okay.
So let's start with group 1. Who from group 1 wants to read out?
Okay, guys, we have a few questions for the video interview. So the first thing I would do is go up and explain to them that I also have experienced homelessness and that I've been there where you are and done that. Some of the questions we have is, how long have you been without shelter? Are you currently employed? Tell me about when your life was good. What has made you homeless? Have you heard about the new legislation making homelessness a crime? What are your thoughts? Are you receiving resources from DCF or the community? If so, what are they? Have you experienced harassment from the public or the officials?
That is a really great start. Thank you very much for that. Is there any feedback on that? Does anybody have any thoughts or anything that you might like to add or highlight? No? Okay. All right.
You're forgiven. I think we all kind of agreed, or our biggest one was like showing diverse faces of homelessness. Because everybody has a different story, but then at the same time, they have the same story. So when it comes to like mental health, alcohol abuse, substance abuse, there's so many different stories that are the same but different.
Yep.
And that needs to be known to our government officials and the people that make the laws for this country and their citizens.
Can I add some agree to that? I definitely agree with that, but one thing is, I think a lot of people assume every homeless person or is alcoholic, drug addicted. So I would love for people to see faces of maybe people without a mental illness or an addiction, just because I think that might make it. I mean, you know, or I mean, every family or most families have addiction
Yeah.
issue or mental illness, but it's nice to see like some other reason. It's like, hey, this person. Yeah, exactly. Or some other, some other reason something happened because I think, a lot of people are just, oh, well, they're a crazy guy walking down the street or the drunk, so that would support it.
Yeah, no, destigmatize homelessness and homeless services, because it's really true. So your suggestion is to make sure we are interviewing a variety of people.
Correct,
And not
yes.
just folks that all look the same, or come from the same place, or have been through the same program, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, last one before we go over to group 2.
This morning, at 6:30 a.m., right outside the Starbucks, met the homeless lady who's sitting in a chair all night long. Okay? So I kind of felt sorry for her. I wanted to start talking to her. So I get her coffee, and she said, no, no coffee. Anyway, and I said, maybe I'll help you with some money, and so on. It happened to change something. But I was willing to give her some money via Cash App or something, right? So I asked her if she had anything like that. I asked first if she had a working phone, and she said yes. And I said, do you have any way of getting money? Like Cash App and etc. She said, yeah, it's Cash App. I said, give me a phone number. I got a phone number, and I was going to go ahead and send her some money. But when I said I was 55, and you need to get a day bus pass, and I invited her to come to this meeting, told her, okay? But then moments later, she says, oh, you know what? She's not changed her mind. Okay? First of all, she had a bad hygiene problem. She had a huge big suitcase and also a bad hygiene problem. So I just stayed like 10 feet away to stop this lady. I thought she had a lot of potential, but I think these are the problems that keep it going. And then you ask them a question, then she said, how did you get my Cash App address or something? I said, look, honey, give me a phone number. They don't understand that. They have to understand this. There have to be some mutual trust. Somebody want to help you, you got it. And then don't complain about $5. Everybody hiding $5? That's what I think.
Thank you. All right, so we do need to move over to group 2. It is 7 o'clock now, and I want to respect time. So we're gonna go ahead and move on to group 2. And then after group 2, presents and we adjourn the meeting, I will go ahead and do stipends for folks. And then also committee members. I have just one slide for today, but I do have some business cards for committee members. So please, committee members, see me after the meeting. Okay, so who for group 2? Nice. Miss Secretary.
Okay, well, we've decided, since we're gonna do a flyer, let's make it about the real cost of criminalizing homelessness. Let's explain to the public how much it's going to cost them in tax money. Let's explain to them what happens to us as they pile on the fees and fines and whatever from arresting us that makes it even harder for us to get back up out of the hole. Let's tell them what the real legal process is. Let's, do a breakdown of money, tax dollars, money we don't have, and then end it all with explaining to them in a short and simple way that criminalizing homelessness really costs everyone, and it didn't cost you before, but it will now.
I like that.
Amen.
I like that. Do we have any thoughts on what group 2 has said? Anything we'd like to add?
I would just like to say that, teamwork makes the dream work, and we're all on this earth together, and we're all in this country together. So, they don't realize they're making it worse on themselves. They didn't want it in their backyard, but guess what? It's gonna come to their front yard.
Now we're gonna get them up.
Yeah.
That's a very, very good.
That's a game I like.
That is awesome. That is wonderful. Thank you so much for providing that feedback. I will ask, if we have notes, that you wouldn't mind me taking, I would really appreciate it, because that would make things a little bit easier for me and Kat on the back end. So if you have notes and you're okay with me taking them, Jeez. All right, so with that in mind, it is 7:03. We are welcome to continue a few minutes of conversation, but for the sake of respecting everybody's time.
Okay, I'll keep it.
Okay, so far, we've gone through quite a bit for tonight. With some ideas that help us for being literally what we are, an advocacy. So hopefully next month we'll come up with some concrete things and we'll look forward to services and results before October 1st. Case, else, we'll close and adjourn the meeting.
Meeting is adjourned at 7:04.
All
Thank you. All right. Thank you. Okay, so let's close out here.